Hi, friends, and welcome back to Supporting Physician Spouses. October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and today we're having a really important conversation, one that touches so many lives in our community, even if it's not something we've personally experienced.
Yeah, right. We know and love people who have walked through this kind of loss. And one of those things can feel so hard is not knowing how to show up, what to say, what not to say, and how to be there in a way that truly supports someone who's grieving.
So, we've invited someone who can help us understand that better. Our guest today is Amy Watson. She's a certified life coach who specializes in pregnancy and infant loss. Amy helps women navigate the deep grief that follows these experiences, and she's passionate about helping others know how to support those they love with compassion and confidence.
We're really grateful for Amy for sharing her wisdom and her heart with us today. We hope you enjoy this conversation.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today, Amy. We are so excited to have you and to learn more about you and how you help women who are like us and going through very difficult things. So, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your family, where you're at, and we can get started there.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I love what you're doing. So my family, it's like a big long story, but I'll keep it in a nutshell. I had four little girls all in a row, 4 and 6 years. And my oldest is now 22. She's married. I have a grandbaby, which is so fun. And then I have a 20-year-old, one that just started college. I've got a junior in high school. After those four girls, we ended up getting pregnant with another girl, and we can dive into what happened as we chat if you want. But basically, after a really beautiful routine pregnancy, I was like, I've got this. It's my fifth time, loved it. We got to the very, very end and just thought I was going into labor, actually. We went on a big hike. My mom flew into town, like from Canada down to Utah, and was there to help us with the baby. And I thought, we'll hike this baby out. Thought I was having contractions that night, was super excited, but realized when things didn't go anywhere, like walked around all night, laid down and realized she hasn't kicked for a while. But, like we do, we just think, like maybe they're just sleeping or whatever, and you're kind of poking them, and everyone says, oh, drink juice. But yeah, ended up going into the hospital later and just hearing those words that nobody wants to hear, that there was no heartbeat, that she had passed away, and we don't really know what happened. It was something with the placenta, we think, but she was perfect. She was healthy until she wasn't. And so we had our daughter, and we named her Lauren, and we got to spend some time with her and meet her, and she was so cute. And yeah, but the most devastating thing I've ever been through. So that was just the start of a grief journey. We did go on and have what we call a rainbow baby. It's a baby born after a loss. I got pregnant right after. And so that year of like losing a perfectly healthy full-term baby and then being pregnant again and all the milestones lined up, we ended up having our first son, and he was born healthy, but it was, like I said, really nerve-wracking, really emotionally and physically exhausting time. So that was awesome. And then we got pregnant again and told our kids at 12 weeks, and at 14 weeks, kind of the same thing, went in for a checkup. There wasn't a heartbeat. I had surgery, so I got to hang out with some doctors. The surgery didn't go really well, and I woke up staring at the ceiling. Like, I feel like it's like in a movie when, people wake up and they're staring at the ceiling. The doctors are saying, like, Amy, you lost a lot of blood. We're going to take you to the hospital, because it should have been an in and out. They were like, it's 20 minutes, we'll, do the surgery. And it wasn't 20 minutes for me. It was really scary. And at one point, I had every doctor in our little small town hospital in my room. That's one of my most vivid memories, is like all of them standing there and like alarms going off and fun things like that.
Ugh.
So yeah, and we named that baby River. We don't know a gender or anything, but those two babies are just included in our family. And we did go on to have another baby. I also got to spend a lot of time with doctors on that one, had preeclampsia, hospital bed rest, maternal fetal medicine, all of the things. And he was born 5 weeks early, but he's healthy. He's 8 years old. He's amazing. I always say like my first four kids were just pretty unremarkable, yes. And the last four were just like a roller coaster that nobody wants to be on. But yeah, we've just spent a lot of time helping other people who are going through the same kind of thing.
I think we should expand a little bit on that because Amy and I have been friends for a long time. And so I know all of the amazing things that she does for that particular community. So let's not just gloss over what all of those things are.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I've done a lot of charity work. I started sewing little tiny flannel diapers for babies that are stillborn and have just gone from there, helped a lot of people just as a friend, someone to talk to. And that led into me coaching and starting my own podcast also to tell people who have been through the loss of a pregnancy or an infant that there is hope, and also to have someone to say it is really crappy and it's really hard, and that's okay too. And I volunteer a lot in my local, I facilitate some support groups and all sorts of things. But I just feel like when Lauren died, I was like, she can't live. And I think that's something unique to people who have experienced the loss of a baby. It's like they didn't really get to live. And so we live for them and speak for them and say their names because not very many people are. So it's just been a road I didn't think I'd travel on, but here I am, and it's been a beautiful thing for me.
Was your desire to turn to help others instant? Or did it take some time for you to go through your own grief? I'm curious what the timeline was on your turnaround there.
I think many of us maybe have been grown up and been almost trained to be helpers, to jump in and to support. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I would say it's the culture is you serve, and that's what helps you feel better. I think it was pretty natural. My mom was a great example of always serving. So I lived in a really small place and didn't have a lot of family around. And so I found support online. But online, a lot of those support groups kind of lean negative, lean into the sadness and how awful it is and how we're never going to be happy again. And I just thought, no, I will be happy again. I don't know how I'm going to get there. But I think pretty quickly I was like, this energy is not where I want to be. So when I found this first charity that I worked with, which is called Teeny Tears, I was like, okay, this is people that are doing something positive with their grief. So yeah, it felt really natural to me. And then it just happened naturally because as I shared my story, just you are, the more you share your story, the more people are like, oh, I can really relate. And then they're going to be like, oh, my friend lost a baby. Can you talk to them? And I would be like, sure, I'll talk to them, So it was pretty organic, I would say.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And that's actually how Amy and I met. I think we were on that journey together with different, I don't want to say different challenges or trials that brought us to that point, but coaching is what actually introduced us to one another. There was a time when you were on call for the hospital. If someone had experienced a loss in the hospital, that you would go in and create little molds of hands and feet and really help take care of the mom and the baby and the whole family in that process. And I just think if only everyone could have somebody like Amy in their life when something like that happens, you would feel much more supported having that.
Yeah, and that's a really unique experience. I did volunteer with a charity that goes in right during a stillbirth because the nurses have a lot going on. The doctors are in and out. And so we were able to be there as peers, people who had a loss, and help them because you're totally in shock. You don't know what to do. The protocols between hospitals or even between the ER or labor and delivery. And unfortunately, if you're 12 weeks, you're stuck in the ER. Or if you're maybe farther along, they might take you to labor and delivery, or different hospitals are so different. there isn't a standard of care. And so we were there to say, like, here's your options and here's what you can do. And you can actually make memories. You can take pictures. You can have the siblings come in. We can help you with funeral arrangements or whatever it is, just to be there to support what the hospital's doing and what the medical professionals are doing.
To me, I just think that that's absolutely beautiful. And I wish that were the case in every hospital, that they had somebody like you or an organization like you and the ones that you volunteered with to be there, because we know, as good as doctors and nurses are, they can't be everything to everybody all of the time.
Yeah. And it's interesting watching it over. So it's been 12 years. Lauren would be 12. And don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's Texas just actually passed a law that said, like, you do need to provide some standard of care and some different options for parents who experience a stillbirth. So there is change happening. A lot of other countries are better than the United States because they have more of a like federal health care thing where they can, provide that. But we'll just keep trying, keep working towards that.
Well, that's one of the things that I've certainly admired about you, Amy, is that you just keep at it. You're like, somebody needs me. I will be there. I will show up whenever I'm needed. So thank you so much for the good work that you do. October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, which is why we wanted to have you on. And as we were preparing for this, I checked in with Katie, like, have you had a loss? Because we know so many people who have. And so the more times you get pregnant, the more times that potentially could happen. I've got 5 healthy children. I haven't experienced that type of loss. But I remember when I was pregnant with my 4th child, there was a whole group of us that were pregnant at the same time. And there was one of them who she delivered a still baby. And it was hard on our entire community, but having not experienced it, it really felt like there was, what can I do? What can I say? How can I be there for my friend? And then the feeling of being guilty because I have a baby in my arms and she should have. So help us walk through that. We'll do 2 scenarios. If we haven't had that loss, but we know someone who has, how can we show up and support them? And then on the flip side, if we've had that experience, where can we go for support if we're still struggling with that?
I want to say first, if it's okay, that number one, if you are pregnant or you're in your childbearing years, I would say it's okay to talk about this. It is such a taboo. And I think most people that go through loss, they're like, I didn't know. I didn't know that all these people around me had this, had experienced this. Sometimes people don't know. We kind of say, oh, well, after the first trimester, you're in the clear, which again, statistically you are, but also like this happens at every stage of pregnancy. And I want people to know that there is support. So I love that question. There is support. There are things you can do. There's so many organizations that will come and help you and people that will help you. So it does happen. And we think it's 2025, like this can't happen anymore, but it does. And so when it does, just know that you're not alone. So for people who haven't had a loss, and I actually had a really good friend and our babies were due on the exact same day. And we had been neighbors and then we both moved but we found out we were due on the exact same day and we went through our whole pregnancies together. And then like my baby died. I hadn't told anybody. She was still texting like, they want to induce me. Should I do it? And I was like, just do it. I didn't want to ruin her birth experience because I had just had this devastating thing happen to me. But eventually we kind of like put it on Facebook. But I would say, I know there's a lot of fear around saying the wrong thing or like, what should I say? And there are better things, I think. But I think the worst thing is not saying anything. And a lot of people do that. They don't want to upset someone. They don't want to say the wrong thing. We just get in our own heads as support people. You don't have to fix it. That's the other thing we get stuck on. It's like, I need to say just the right thing, or I need to, make just the right dinner or send the right whatever to fix it, but you can't fix it. But you can be there with them and let them know you're there. And so you can even say, I don't know what to say, but I love you and I'm just so sorry and I'm like heartbroken. I'm praying with you if that's something that, feels appropriate. I'm heartbroken. I cried. I thought of your baby. Use the baby's name if they had one. They don't always, but if they do have a name. And we went on a vacation and, you're looking through the personalized, pocket knives or anything that has the name on it. If I see the name of like my friend's angel baby, like I'll just take a picture of it and send it to them and be like, I thought of you,
Yeah.
So I do always say like the most basic is something is better than nothing. And you learn that when you go through something really hard. Is like the people who show up, it really matters.
Yeah. I have a friend who lost her baby full term on her first baby. And I was Googling, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I had learned that it's good to also remember to congratulate them for becoming a parent. And she still remembers, she's like, you were the first one to congratulate me on becoming a mom. And it's such like a tender time. So I just went out with faith, like, hopefully this sits right. But because she is, and she also believes in a life after death and feels very connected to her baby that is heavenside now.
And I think that's really important. And on my podcast, if I have guests, I say, tell me about your baby's life. That's the unique thing about losing a baby, especially in pregnancy or even like early on. It's like they did live. Like you don't have those pictures. Like when grandpa dies, you can do a whole slideshow and you've got memories and you've got all these things. But when a baby dies, you don't have those things. But there are, there's still obviously a connection. Like we always, as parents, we feel like we know our babies before they're born. And even depending like how early it is, it doesn't really matter. Like you're mourning the life you dreamed of when you saw the two pink lines. And so that's another thing I would say is like there's no comparison in baby loss because everyone is so different. Whether you're doing fertility stuff and like a little embryo doesn't thaw correctly. I think we do want a hierarchy so we can kind of place how much suffering there should be or how much grief. Like if you were 6 weeks, you can have this much grief, but if it was a full term, you can have this much grief. And unfortunately, society does that. And so as support people, if you can just say like, no, follow their lead, but understand this is devastating no matter what. There are some people who are like, you know what, that happens, miscarriages happen and it's okay. And that's okay too. But I think even as grievers, even losing a baby, you'll be like, oh, I had a miscarriage, so early. Why am I still upset? Why am I still sad?
Amy, you mentioned that in this incident with your other friend who was pregnant at the same time, did you tell her, or how long did it take you before you were able to share that news? Is that something you just wanted to keep to yourself for a long time? Like as people on the outside who might want to be supporting a friend, do we wait for them to reach out? Do we
if you hear about it, I would say reach out because I think that's the other thing. It's like the person who's grieving does not have the energy or, we have this classic, let me know if I can do anything.
Yeah, I hate that.
And we know that even on your best day, if you've got a mountain of laundry, like you are not calling your friend and say, come fold this laundry with me or for me, right? My bathroom's a mess. My kids are feral. Like you're not even going to do it. So to put that on a grieving person, I would not recommend doing that. What I would recommend is think of something specific that you can do and offer it to them. But as far as telling people, yeah, I did. I was like ready to have a baby any second. I had to share. So I did share that pretty quickly. But yeah, with River, I guess we had barely moved. That was really hard. We'd only lived in our new town for like 6 weeks, maybe. And so people didn't know. We just told the kids. And so, yeah, sometimes with the earlier losses, it's like, it's an announcement and saying we were pregnant, but we lost the baby So that can be really difficult. So again, just making space for people to share if they want to, checking in on them when you ask them, like, how are you doing? Like, mean it. Sometimes even saying, how are you doing today is a little easier question to answer because they're just like, they're probably not doing good, but they're going to say they're fine because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So making space for them to be real. And I think that was one of the most helpful things for me is I did have that friend who had her baby was one of my best supports. And just had a few friends that would keep texting me, would check in on me, would call me. And I knew I could say today is awful. Like all I've done is cry, you know?
Mm.
I knew they were just there for me. So I think that's really important. And it doesn't matter how long it's been, too. Because I remember before I had our losses, there was a friend and I wanted to do something for her, but I didn't know because I wasn't that close to her.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I want to do this, but what about this? And what if it's weird? Like if I just show up with like flowers or it's been this long and I've been stewing on it and not doing anything. It's like, I should just do it, you know?
Yeah, that's good life advice. Anyway, I'm known for having great intentions, but maybe not perfect follow through. To just work on those
Yeah.
and move quickly, especially when it comes to those who are suffering a loss like that.
Yeah. Never suppress a generous thought and then do what your capacity is too. As a support person, I used to think that I had to make a big homemade meal and blah, blah. And now I'm like the queen of a loaf of French bread, a frozen lasagna, and a bag of salad. You can drop it off. They can eat it within the next few days. It's fine. And I just had to stop having these expectations that that wasn't good enough. But that is good enough if that's what you have capacity for.
And I think it honors the person who's receiving. I don't know when you're going to need this. Maybe it's not tonight, but it's going to keep for a couple of days.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I'm thinking about some of the people that are in our audience. Katie knows a lot about me, or not Katie. Well, Katie does too, but Amy really knows a lot about me because we've been friends for so long. And we've talked about the similarities in our lifestyles. Amy's husband is in law enforcement. Could you walk us through, like, how was this for your husband going through infant and baby loss? Was his grieving different? Was he able to be a support to you? And then what can we expect from a partner
who has a demanding career? Yes.
Yeah.
I think that is something that often gets a little bit pushed aside because if you're married to a man and often they are trying to be the strong one, right? Or they are experiencing differently. If it's an earlier loss, maybe they haven't, created the bond that you have as the mom. And a lot of times they're the one answering the door. They're the one like dealing with the people and just checking in with the husband. The support group that I do, I love that the husbands are coming and they have a lot to say. So don't count them out. And especially in law enforcement, in a medical situation, they're used to seeing difficult things. They're used to kind of pushing their emotions down to get through what they got to get through and holding it together and being professional. And so they probably use some of those coping skills for their own grief. And it can be tough. And I always say grief is patient, like it will catch up to you. A lot of times they want to stay busy or they have to.
Yeah.
Right? They don't maybe get the option to just be home and be sad. And that's another really hard thing with pregnancy loss is generally you don't get bereavement leave. People are trying to change that. But it's like, well, your baby died. So like you don't need paternity. You don't qualify for a lot of things. So I think, again, as a support person, check in on the dads and support them. It might be different, but they still need it for sure. And they still care. I know for my husband, after our surgery with River, being the one watching me basically have 0 blood pressure and like almost like had just needed more blood than I had, sitting back while all those doctors were in my room, that was terrifying. That was not a good experience. But then he has to pick up and like take me home and like help me as I'm recovering.
And then go to work in a couple of days.
Yes, and then go to work. I know after Lauren died, there was basically a manhunt for this person that was known to be armed and like all these things. And like he's out there. And I was like, you better not die too. But he couldn't really say no, or he wanted to be out doing and being busy. So that was hard. I think with relationships, whenever you go through hard things, you gotta communicate and meet each other where you are. A lot of times they'll say like losing a child is really hard on a relationship, or going through medical school, all the things, like it can be really hard. But I think what's hard is when we have these expectations of how someone should grieve or how they should act or whatever it is. And we're both kind of in survival mode and we're trying to connect and feeling like we're just missing each other. I think that hard things can really pull us together. And for me, I would say that was true. It sucked, like being home with the kids, and he's gone a lot and I don't know what he's doing and when he's coming home. So kind of holding that together was really hard. But, we're all just doing the best we can. And so just giving each other grace, I think, is really important in those situations, especially right after. But yeah, he got a little time off, but he did not get much. And so, a lot of people will want their partner to be their total support system or be like, we're the only two people that know what this is like. So I need to lean on you. And it puts a lot of pressure on the relationship. So I definitely recommend getting support, get in therapy, get a coach, join support groups, join in person, online, listen to podcasts, read books, but find your people so that you can take a bit of pressure off of that relationship, because it can be really hard. And I'm sure that's like really similar to lots of challenges that we go through in life.
Yeah, as you were describing that, I'm thinking about our community, and it is a lot of times women who feel like I have to do it all, and they feel that way even in their loss and in their grieving because their partner isn't there. But if you wouldn't mind, since you brought up organizations and resources, could you share some of the ones that you have off the top of your head, and including the ones that you have?
I have a podcast called Smooth Stones. My website is smoothstonescoaching.com. I'm on Instagram at amy.smoothstonescoaching. And I am always just an email away. Like, I really am. I will talk to anybody. Send me a DM. Let's chat. I have some free resources and lots of cool things. There's a lot of resources in all different places. I work with, it's called Share, and they have chapters in many states. Like I said, Teeny Tears is a great organization to volunteer with. There are just so many. But I think just checking in your local area, asking around, getting on Google, you should be able to find someone, or reach out to me and I will try to point you in the right direction, because there are just so many organizations. I think the coolest thing about losing a baby, if there's a cool thing, but you still have that mothering energy. So lots of people still have that and they want a place for it to go. That's why sewing little tiny diapers and blankets was amazing for me, because it's like you want to mother that baby that's not there. And so people take that in really unique ways. Like, I know of a charity where they make little necklaces for people, and it's like a ministry and they give them away. You just pay for shipping and you can have a necklace. I know one that does flowers. It's called Evermore Blooms. That's a great one for support people, because they actually will send a bouquet to someone who's had a loss. But they also sell really cute merch to support their charity. Or like I said, there's people like in Washington, D.C. fighting to change and to get funding to research stillbirth. And they're working with doctors and they're working with all these people to make this experience less painful and less frequent in the US. There's so many cool things happening because that's kind of what we do, as moms. We're going to get in there, we're going to make it better, and we're going to, like I said, live for our children.
With that mothering energy that you're talking about, I want to hear how you approach anniversaries or due dates or holidays that can bring up a lot of grief, but can also potentially be a special time for you and your partner and for your family to honor.
Yeah, so we've done all different things. With Lauren, it felt like she had a birthday. And so we do celebrate her birthday. We'll go to the cemetery if we can. We do a cake. I used to do big service projects. I would get all my friends and like everyone in my town, and I was just like really annoying about it. Like, get them to also sew little diapers and blankets and make little hats. Or like when she turned 6, I did a Venmo. Like, will everyone send $6 to my favorite charity, which is Teeny Tears? And we actually broke their Venmo because so many people sent in money. So that's been really fun. And I want something positive leading up, so I'm not just like sad leading up to those things. But yeah, Mother's Day, Father's Day, due dates, birthdays, holidays. So many holidays are kid centric.
Yeah.
And so again, as a support person, you could even say like Halloween's coming up. If you feel comfortable, you could even say, what do you think, your baby, what were you envisioning? Like, what costume would they be? What do you think they'd be doing? Or opening up those conversations or supporting them. Because a lot of times that support does fall off. I always say, be there after the casserole stop coming. Put it in your phone, put their little birthday, and just remember. It can be as simple as a text. And then River, again, is so different because I don't want to remember the day that I had surgery because it was awful. But like I hadn't identified with the due date because it was so far away. And so we just kind of celebrate on October 15th, which is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. And we don't really do a birthday. And that's okay too. It's okay that it's different and it's so personal and it changes year to year. So again, as a support person, just roll with what the person you care about is wanting to do.
Yeah.
If they're doing something, jump in there. If not, just let them know you remember.
I love
and
that.
For yourself, if you've had a loss, just do what feels right.
You've worked with not only organizations, but you've worked with individuals and you've hosted these support groups. What is the thing that's maybe surprised you the most that has come out of that for you personally?
I have seen, again, in like over a decade of doing this, I have seen a shift to where it is much more talked about. There are lots of resources. There is good support. And I just love the resilience of the human spirit. When you're in the room in the hospital with people on their worst day ever, they're physically probably not doing very good. Emotionally, they're just devastated. And they don't think they'll ever be happy again, that they'll ever recover from this, right? Like most of us think if we lost a child, like we would not survive it.
Yeah.
But we do survive it every single day. And there's just like so much goodness. And part of that goodness is you learn what grief is. You really gotta like get down and dirty with stuff you've never felt before. If you can do that, if you can allow for that and just cry your eyes out as long as you need to and be angry and wrestle with your faith, wrestle with relationships, because hard times really affect, it's like, oh, you see who actually shows up, who can handle you as a grieving person and who maybe can't. So there's a lot of opportunities for growth and we kind of hate it when we're in it. And we hate it when we're in it and people say, oh, like I learned so much. I always say, you don't have to learn anything. When it sucks, just let it suck.
Yeah.
But like, you're going to be okay. I promise.
Amy, you're just amazing.
I know. That's my response too. I'm like, everyone needs an Amy in their corner.
Yes,
Yeah.
everyone can have an Amy in their
Yeah, I
corner,
know.
incidentally. Because we know that grief has several stages and it shows up differently for everyone. People who come seeking coaching from you, I can't imagine, I'm putting myself into a situation that I've never experienced before, that I might not be ready to talk to somebody immediately after it happens. But at what point in that do you say, if you're still experiencing difficulty, you need to talk to somebody? I would probably say the answer is you should talk to somebody as soon as possible. But when are you typically seeing people come to you that are needing help?
It really varies. Everyone's so different, right? It's so individual. But like I've had people reach out before they've even buried their child. I've had talked to people like 10 years later who had the autopsy report and they had not opened it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I try to put out tons of free stuff is like, hey, I have an episode when people say, how many kids do you have? It's amazing after you go through this, all the small talk questions, they become like very, very difficult. That's another tip I will give too. It's like, tell me about your family. Instead of how many kids do you have? We just ask a lot of invasive questions that can be really tricky after loss. But I have an episode that's like, what do you do when someone says, how many kids do you have? Because it feels paralyzing.
Yeah, how do I answer
Right?
that
Like
question?
you don't want to bring up this really sad emotional thing. You don't want to leave your baby out. Like you don't know the words. We all need support. And there's just something about getting support from someone who knows what it's like, whether it's like a coach that's been through it or a therapist that understands grief. If you're thinking about it, just do it. And if you've been thinking about it for a long time, you can still do it. You know, it really depends.
Yeah. So the first time you mentioned support groups, I pulled up some notes that I took yesterday. I was doing a course online and the presenter said something and I hurriedly wrote it down. She said that supportive groups provide a broader sense of belonging and shared purpose and resilience. And so I thought immediately of the community that Katie and I belong to. And then when you said it again, it's like, I think that's really the magic in it, is that it gives you a safe place to belong where you're with somebody else who has experienced something similar instead of feeling like you're the only person who's ever gone through something difficult, regardless of what the difficulty is, but being part of a supportive community of like-minded people who have similar experiences, who are struggling with the same things, can actually help you feel like you belong, give you a shared sense of purpose, and helps increase your resiliency. So that's just a plug for not only the community that Katie and I are building, but also the one that I know that you are building as well. And so grateful for the work that you do, Amy.
And I'll add like normalizing the experience. I mean, I've heard you say it so many times, Kendra, of like, you think being the doctor's wife is going to be this, this, and this. And when it isn't, it's like, oh, crap. Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or what's wrong with me? And so when you get in community, then it's like, oh, wait, this is pretty normal. And there's other people going through that. And so I think the same with, like you said, any other challenges. It's like, you realize there's other people that don't know what to say when they get asked small talk questions, you know, like, how are you doing? And you're like, so yeah, I totally agree that we need each other. We're so connected right now, and yet we can feel really isolated. So I definitely will put in any plug for finding support.
One of the other things I was thinking about when somebody is newly pregnant and they're just so excited and they're, reading all of the books and it's just all glorious happiness getting ready. Would you recommend that somebody who's pregnant even like get into that? Should you know what resources exist before you need them? Or is this one of the things you should just wait until you need it and then go look for it?
I mean, I think it's kind of like we wear our seatbelt in the car, right? Like, we know that there's risks and we know that things can happen, but we also can just keep moving on with our lives. So I think just being aware, there's a lot of people doing stillbirth prevention and there's a lot of outdated information that actually could help people advocate for themselves. And also on the medical side, listening to women and not just saying, oh, like you're 37 weeks, like it's fine.
Yeah.
So I do think understanding that this does happen, there is support is plenty, but also as you get farther along, counting kicks is huge. And if you get the Count the Kicks app, that's really helpful and will give you that information. So moms have worked really hard on that. And so again, I think information is power. We don't need to be stressed, but I definitely think being educated instead of just like burying your head in the sand and hoping it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah.
Just be an advocate for yourself and your baby. And if you feel like something is off, go in, bother labor and delivery.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
What they're there for.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to include all of your support suggestions and all of your social media information in our show notes because, like I said, Amy is not only a dear friend of mine, but she's also an amazing resource for all things related to infant and pregnancy loss. And we're so honored that you would spend this time with us today. Katie, you have any final thoughts or questions for our guest, Amy?
What I learned today was that in every hard situation, there's always an upstream need. For you to bring up the systemic issues around infant and pregnancy loss, I've never even thought of those things like bereavement leave or standard care in the hospitals. And so I feel motivated to continue to be open and an ally to all people who struggle with these things because with systems in place, it can just ease the hard that we go through. So thank you for coming and sharing your experience with us. And I just feel like you're so brave, but it's really just beauty. Like I just hear your story and your wisdom and your experiences and the way that you've turned back to sit with people at really challenging, but also really sacred parts of their journey is just really inspiring. So thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you both.
Any last words, Amy?
I was just thinking as you said that, I'll put in a plug to anyone listening. If you have a spouse in medicine that's in a hospital setting or like even clinics and stuff, just ask, just say, what is the care? And I wonder what they will do. And I'll just, again, say, if you've gone through a loss, like there's so much hope and just hang in there and keep taking care of yourself. And if you love someone who has, or, if this happens in your life, just love them and keep checking on them.
That's great advice.
Thank you so much. This honestly, this is tender, but so good for the soul too.
For sure.
You guys are awesome. I love what you're doing too.
Well, we love you and thank you. I'll let you go.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation today. I feel really uplifted in understanding more of the sacred and often misunderstood kind of grief. Amy's words give us a deeper sense of what it means to simply show up and be a really good support person.
If you're listening and you know someone who's experienced pregnancy or infant loss, we hope this conversation gave you both the language and the courage to reach out. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can say is, I'm here.
We've included all of the information about Amy's work, including her website, her social media handles, in our show notes. So if you're interested to learn more about her coaching or share her support materials with someone else, you have access to them now.
And to those in our community who've experienced this kind of loss, we see you, we honor you, and we're holding space for your stories and your hearts.
Thank you for being here with us today. We'll see you next time on Supporting Physician Spouses.